class. Let's start the urinary system. I have broken this lecture into 4 sections, so there will be 4 separate recordings. If I don't say anything and I just click through a slide, that means there's nothing but definitions on there and not really anything I need to clarify for you. This is section 1 of 4. So when we think about the urinary system, we think about 4 different organs. The kidney, which produces urine, the ureters, there's 2 of them. Here you can see that we have 2 ureters, and they transport urine from the kidney to the urinary bladder. This structure is the urinary bladder, and this structure is the urethra. So, if you remember in the last lecture in digestion, we had the word eliminate, and I said, you know, be thoughtful about the word eliminate. So now that we're in the urinary system, I want you to think about these 2 words, the first one being excrete, and the second one being eliminate. Eliminate means that you're removing it from the body. Excrete indicates that we have some form of cellular process occurring, right? So your kidneys excrete urine, but your urinary tract, which is made up of your ureters, your urinary bladder, and your urethra, allow for elimination. And this is a huge distinction that I don't want you to miss, right? The difference between excretion and elimination. The fact that both of these occur in the urinary system, but they occur using different organs. The term urination can be interchanged with the term micturition. If you're in a clinical setting, you will also hear the word void, V-O-I-D. Someone has voided. So urination or micturition or voiding means the process of eliminating urine from your body. It takes contractions of your urinary bladder that's going to force the urine through the urethra and out of the body, right? So our functions of the urinary system are excretion, and we will go into great detail. That's the removal of organic waste from body fluids. The second one is elimination, and that's the discharge of those waste products. And the third one is homeostatic regulation. Because of the urinary system, we are able to regulate blood plasma volume and solute concentration. So we have underneath this third function of the urinary system 5 other homeostatic. Okay. So the first one is regulating blood volume and pressure. That is done by adjusting the amount of water or the volume of water that's lost in the urine. The second one is regulating plasma ion concentrations, and we will go into more detail a bit later on, where you can see, excuse me, where sodium, potassium, chloride, other ions are going to be lost in urine. And then we have calcium ions that are also, the levels are going to be regulated because of the urinary system. And also we have stabilization of blood pH, and that has to do with the amount of hydrogen ions and bicarbonate ions we lose in urine. The fourth homeostatic function is keeping things that we need, right? So we're conserving valuable nutrients, and we prevent excretion of these while excreting waste, right? So we have this ability to retain valuable nutrients. and it also assists the liver with the detoxification of poisons. So when we look at where kidneys are located in your body, you see here that we have the right kidney and the left kidney. They are located in the abdominal cavity, but they are lodged and secured against the dorsal portion of the abdominal cavity, and they are held in place by this overlying peritoneum, right? So they are held in place by other organs, by this peritoneum, and by connective tissues. Also, I'd like for you to notice that on top of each kidney, we have these pyramid-shaped glands called your adrenal glands. Okay? So when you look at where the kidney is and how it's protected and how it's stabilized, we have the renal capsule itself that I'll show you in more detail. It's collagen, covers the entire organ. Then there's adipose, there's fat around your kidney. And then there's this renal fascia, and that's anchoring that kidney in place. Typical adult kidney, it's about 5 centimeters wide, 3 centimeters thick. It's a little bit smaller than your fist, but you can basically say it's fist size. It's a little bit smaller. All right, so I talked about hilums before. So here I'm going to circle with red the location of the hilum for each kidney. So this is the point of entry for the renal arteries, the renal veins, the renal nerves, point of entry and exit for the arteries and veins and the nerves and the ureter. And you can see that. You can see the ureter and you can see the arteries and veins right here. So let's talk about the anatomy of the kidney. I'm going to go into some pretty significant detail on this slide. One of the things I want you to notice is that you can see the hilum. Here it is right here. This is the point of entry of the ureter, and remember the arteries, the veins, the nerves for the kidney. Those arteries, veins, and nerves have been removed so that you can have a clear picture of the anatomy of the kidney, but realize that they would be there. All right, so even though this page says renal sinus, I'm going to go through the anatomy of the kidney and point out very specific areas for you. All right. The first thing I want you to notice is the cortex. And I'm drawing a line around the area that is the cortex. And there have been times before where I've told you that, many organs have a cortex and medulla, and it's like a navel orange. So the cortex would be the peel and the white tip of the orange, and the medulla or the medullary area would be the actual orange itself. But when I give that analogy, oftentimes people think that the cortex is not of any use, and that's not it at all. The cortex is extremely important. So I drew a red line through the cortex. Now I'm going to draw a green line and show you the medullary area, right? So this is the medullary area. And I'm going to continue with this so that you can see that all of this is considered the medulla. And all of this that I drew before is considered to be the cortex. And let me just come back around. Sorry, y'all, I'm drawing with a mouse. All right, so this is the cortex. So if I say cortical or cortical area, you'll know that it's this outer area. If I say medullary area, you'll know it's this inner area. But this is where it gets a little sticky. So this cortical area is made up of cortical tissue, right? The cortex is made up of cortical tissue. But I want you to notice these areas that are light pink, just like the cortex. So these areas are called the renal columns, and they are made up of cortical tissue, right? It's not part of the cortex, but they are made up of cortical tissue. Okay. So each one of these dark structures is called a renal pyramid, right? Each one of these is called a renal pyramid. Now I'm going to get some of this color off of here. Erase. Right, so you can see that I have drawn a green line around what's called a renal pyramid. Each renal pyramid is separated by renal columns, right? So those are renal pyramids. But if you'll notice, there's already a black line drawn around part of the renal columns. I'm drawing it in purple now, on each side of a renal pyramid. So the combination of the renal pyramid, this part of the cortex, and these parts of the columns, that entire structure is called a renal lobe, right? So this is a renal lobe. That is very important because that is the functional unit, right? The renal lobe. Right. I really love it when you can actually have a cartoon, this image right here that I've been drawing on, that looks so much like the actual organ itself. So you can see over to my right that we have an actual kidney where you can see the lobes, you can see the cortex, you can see the medullary area. All right. Another thing that, or other structures that I would like to show to you are the calyces. So in red, I am marking the minor calyces, right? Those are the minor calyces. In green, I am going to mark the major calyces. So this is a major calyce, this is a major calyce, and, or sorry, major calyx. There are 3 major calyces here. Another structure that I would like for you to see is the renal papilla. So right here, each one of these renal pyramids has a renal papilla. And the papilla is going to dump its contents of the renal lobe the contents of the renal lobe is going to be dumped through the renal papilla into the minor calyx. Each one of those minor calyces is going to come together to form a major calyce. Each one of the major calyces is going to come together to dump their substances into the renal pelvis. This is the renal pelvis right here, this area, and then the substance will go down the ureter. All right. Another structure that I would like for you to, or another area that I would like for you to note, while I take all of my drawings off of here, is back behind the major calyces and the renal pelvis. You can see there is a space, right? So I'm circling the space. So if you could put a probe back here, you would actually be putting a probe into a cavity, and this is called the renal sinus. So the calyces all reside within this renal sinus. All right, the renal capsule covers the kidney itself, and it stabilizes the ureters, the blood vessels, and the nerve. I've already discussed the cortex, showed it to you. It's this area right here. The renal pyramids here in the darker color. I've already talked about that. Here's the papilla at the end. The columns, remember I showed to you earlier. A lobe, as you can see, is this area that I've just circled in green. That is the functional unit that allows for the production of. We already talked about the renal papilla right here. Major calyx. There's one here, one here, one here. The renal pelvis, that's this chamber, funnel-shaped chamber. All right, so you know that the purpose of the kidney, one of the purposes of the kidney is to remove waste. And another purpose is to maintain homeostatic balance. But in order to do this, we have to have blood flow through the kidney. So when we look at the blood supply to the kidney, it's receiving 20 to 25% of your cardiac output. So there's 1,200 milliliters of blood that flows through the kidneys each minute. That's a tremendous amount of blood. But the only way that the kidney gets blood is through the renal artery. All right, so let's go over here and look at how the arteries change, go into, and the blood then goes into the capillaries, and then how the veins change in size, going away from the capillaries. All right, so we know that arteries take blood away from the heart and that veins take blood back to the heart. So we know that we have oxygenated blood that's coming into the kidney through the renal artery. So as you follow along, you see the renal artery that then becomes the suprarenal artery. Then, as we continue on with these arteries, you see that they then engage with the lobes of the kidney. So here we're looking at how the arteries change and become interlobar arteries, right? And then become interlobular arteries. Notice these right here. And they continue to get smaller and smaller. So over here on this picture, you see that renal arteries become segmental arteries. This is the segmental artery portion over here. Interlobar arteries, they then become arcuate. They follow the arc of the pyramid, then become interlobular. So interlobular is moving up into this space. And then they become afferent arterioles. So these tiny little structures right here, as I'm dotting with my green highlighter, those are the afferent arterioles. So remember, afferent always means that you're going toward something, and efferent means you're coming away from something. So what you're going toward, and you cannot see in detail what you're going toward in this picture or in this picture. You can't see it, but we're going to be talking in great detail about the glomerulus. So the afferent arterioles are taking this oxygenated blood that has waste in it to the glomerulus. Something's going to happen in the glomerulus, and then that blood is going to be taken away from the glomerulus through the efferent arteriole. Remember, we're still dealing with arterial blood. We haven't made our way to any capillaries yet, but that is the next step. We make our way to the peritubular capillaries. Then we have the exchange that we need in order to feed the organ. Then the blood goes through the venous portion of this. Remember, venules are small. We have the interlobular veins. We would find them here. Then we have the arcuate. This is the arcuate right here. And then we have the interlobar, which is what you would find right here. And then we make our way back to the renal vein. Okay. It's really important that you see that we have afferent arterioles going to the glomerulus and efferent arterioles. So if you think about the processes, not only are we cleaning blood and maintaining homeostatic balance, but we're also having to feed the organ, right? So as I went through, segmental arteries receive blood from the renal arteries. We have the interlobar arteries that deliver blood to the arcuate. Remember, the arcuate follows the arch of the pyramid. The afferent arterioles, here they are right here, dotting them for you. And they deliver the blood to the capillaries that actually will supply the individual